Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to do a trigger job on this brand new Glock. It's a Gen 4 21 45 ACP. Smooth magazine. Make sure we're clear. Now, I personally don't mind the Glock triggers. I think they're okay. They're definitely not the best I've ever had, but they're definitely not the worst I've ever had. But you can do some minor improvements to them. Now, when I say you can do minor improvements, I'm talking about myself. In no way, shape, form, or fashion am I giving instruction to you on how to do this. I'm just showing you what I do to my Glocks. So with that said, here we go. First, what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble the pistol. I have a Ghost Edge trigger connector bar, and I have a Ghost spring kit. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, let me show you what. Let's talk about the factory trigger. Factory triggers, a little bit of take up, a decent break to it, a good audible short reset, and they're not bad. Not the smoothest in the world, but they're not bad, like I said. But I'm going to make it a little bit smoother. I've done this to a couple of my other Glocks, a Gen 3 17 and Model 26 that I carry every day. But let's get right to it. All right, so we break it down. We're going to set this to the side. Now what we're going to do is, if you can see, I hope, this piece right here, this is a connector that connects the trigger bar, has a little, what they call the crucifix on it, and this is what rides down in your connector, this piece, and I'll show you how it is assembled later. But this piece of metal right here is a stamped piece, and whenever they stamp metal, it is very rough. Hope you can kind of see that. Let me make sure I can try to get this up here where you can kind of see it a little bit. But you can tell that is a rough piece of metal. Well, what makes that a problem is where it rides. When you pull the trigger back, this is what pushes in your plunger, your firing pin plunger. So that has to ride over that and push that down. And that rough surface, it makes it a little bit gritty. We're going to try to improve that just a little bit. Now, first thing to do is disassemble and take your trigger apart. So what we got here, Glock tool, Glock armor tool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this pin out of the back. Got a little bucket right here that we're going to put our parts in. The next one, we're going to take this one out. Now, your slide release is held in by this pin right here. So you're going to have to kind of maneuver it around a little bit. I've had to wiggle them in and out, but they just push in and out. Take this pin out. Now this pin is metal. The one back here is it's polymer on the Gen 4. Just got to kind of wiggle that around a little bit. Like I said, that'll push all the way out. and your trigger or your slide release will come right out. So it goes right through here. Put that in our bucket. Pull this off, the other pin all the way out. And this whole assembly, well, you've got to remove your block first. It just pulls right up out of there, like that. And your trigger assembly will pull right out of there. So we're going to set our frame aside. Now, the connector that we're going to replace is this piece right here with the ghost connector. Now this is a brand new pistol. It's I think I've fired about 100 rounds through it. Brought it home, cleaned it. So what we're going to do here is, see this piece right here? This is all one piece from your trigger. You got your safety on your trigger here. This is connected and it pushes back. So as you push the trigger, this bar pushes down and this releases the firing pin. So let's just take this apart. Just kind of twist it a little bit. Pull it up out of there and you have your spring. Okay. With this connector, just prise up out of there. Like so. It's just held down in this piece of plastic right here. Set the factory one aside. Now, our spring, I'm going to take this all apart because I want to get it to where I can use my Dremel tool and I can file on it a little bit. Like I said, this is just what works for me. And I like my 17 that I did. It's pretty smooth. It helps out with accuracy tremendously. Okay, so I'm gonna get a rag and I'm gonna wipe this factory grease off here. Okay, pop this down a little bit. So this surface right here, we do not want to change any angles at all, okay? It's very critical that you do not change the angles. I'm just going to use a small file. This is very, very rough. I mean, it's so rough on, because it looks like they stamp it down this way, which pushes the metal over. And this side right here is very, very rough. You can see my fingernails getting hung on the side of it. So here's what we're going to do. Got a couple of little files. We're going to use. Okay. Now, like I said, we do not want to change any angles on this. We're just going to smooth it up a little bit to where it goes a little smoother over the plunger. Then we're going to polish this whole piece. Now, polishing. This surface right here is where it rides on the connector, the trigger connector right here. So we're going to polish this smooth, really shiny, and then I'm going to show you another little trick that I do with Froglube. Then we're going to use metal polish. I picked this up at AutoZone. Use it on chrome, aluminum, mag wheels. Works great. I use Froglube in all of my handguns. I love this stuff. It's phenomenal paste. CLP. Okay. So like I said, we're not going to change any angles on here. Okay. We're just going to take our file and lightly, we're just going to remove that rough edge. I'm going to start back here because this is the roughest part. Okay. And I'm just going to. Now in the Gen 4s, they have this little button right here. We do not want to file that off. We're going to do the back side. Just slightly. Now when I did my 17, it was amazing to me how that my accuracy increased dramatically because of the smoother trigger pull. When you pull the trigger, if it's smooth and it's not gritty, you're not having to push the, when you pull, the barrel's not going one way or the other. And believe me, I've had enough pistols in my life to where I've realized really quick a crappy trigger. I know this might be some controversy, but I just got rid of an M&P 9mm. It was one of their Pro Series, and that had to be absolutely the worst trigger in a brand new modern pistol that I have ever owned. I hated that thing. But anyway, I got rid of it because of that. I know you can buy Apex trigger systems for them, but an Apex trigger system for an M&P is about $160. Very expensive. I know they're good products, but this kit right here with the connector and the springs with the Glock, $29. It's a huge difference. Okay, let's get back to the project. Okay, so as you can see, I just ran my file over it. No more rough edge, smooth. Okay, now we're going to get onto the mating surface. Lightly. Now this is very critical. We do not want to change any angle. Okay, we're just going to run the file over it a few times. You can see how it's taken down that rough surface just a little bit. See it getting flat? Yeah, much better. Now this one actually has, it looks like an indentation down in here. Now I'm keeping my file flat with this surface. Now the next thing we're going to do is right here at the very top, ever so slightly. Feel for any roughness. It's pretty smooth right there. Pretty flat. Now, down here on the bottom, it's really not as critical because this edge down here doesn't touch. But this surface right here is what rides up your plunger. Excellent. Now you can see how that is so much more smooth. There's no rough edge. Doesn't it grab my fingernail on? Yeah, much better. Okay. Now, up here at the top, just ever so slightly go over the curve. There we go. Okay. All right. Now this surface back here, I don't mess with any of this, okay? Because this surface right here is actually the mating surface to your firing pin. Right here. So I'm not going to mess with this at all, okay? Except for polishing it. It's pretty smooth anyway. It's not bad. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out a Dremel tool with these polishing pads and our metal polish and go to work. So I'm gonna be right back with you. Get the Dremel tool set up, be right back. I'll take my Dremel tool. Turn the speed down. And just start polishing. Now when you go on Ghost website, one of the things that they talk about with their connectors is how it's factory polished. So once you do this and you put in your Ghost trigger, you're going to have two polished surfaces. See how slick that is now? Very nice. Very nice. So now, very smooth, shiny, slick surface. Okay, let's do some more. This takes a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to go through this whole process of polishing every bit of this. But then I'll bring you back so you don't have to sit here and watch me polish this whole thing. Okay, so now we're back. So as you can see, I've taken this and I've polished as much surface as I can to where it looks like chrome. Even did the back side of it. And here's, I do this surface for the reason of when you put this connector down in here like this, that's the surface that rides against the frame. So, I don't know if you can see it, but there's already marks right there where that bar was riding up against the frame. So I want to get this as smooth and as slick as I possibly can, because anytime you can eliminate friction, you're going to make a smoother trigger, right? Okay. So here's the next thing that I do. After I get it all chromed up, set that aside. Froglube. Froglube, you can go on their website and find out some more information about it. I'm not going to go into the specifics about it. But Froglube, to me, is it's an amazing product. This is the paste. And what I do whenever I do a job like this is I take and put on a new wheel on my Dremel tool, and I actually buff all the chrome with Froglube. The way Froglube works is you put it on, and like I said, it's a paste, but whenever it's exposed to heat, it actually melts. It becomes almost liquefied. When it becomes liquefied, it absorbs into the metal. And you can take this stuff, and after you shoot, and I usually do this drastic twice. After that, I only clean it with this. The residue after you get done shooting just wipes off. It's great stuff. But let me show you how it works. I want you to try to get in here where you can kind of see this. I'll put a little bit of Froglube on here. I hope you can see that as I heat this up, I want you to watch what the Froglube does. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but it almost becomes liquefied. just melts right down to the pores of the metal. Turn up the speed on my Dremel tool just a little bit. Yeah, turn it up a little faster. You can almost see it almost becoming liquefied. Now this helps protect the metal. It's lubricant. This is really, really slick now. And every time there's heat in the gun, this stuff will become liquefied more. We'll do this surface right here really, really well. And this ramp right here, because this is the ramp that actually rides on the connector that we're going to put in. Like I said, I've done this project on my Glock 17 and my 26, and the triggers on those things are just smooth as butter. Really fabulous. I do this surface. See the heat on there? Can you actually see it melting? Now that's hot, but you can see the heat where I've created some friction there. It's actually melting the Froglube. See that? It's awesome stuff. Watch this. You see that? It just melts. It's amazing. It's great stuff. All right, let's do a ramp right here. Now these little pads that I'm using, they're just buffing pads for a Dremel tool. They're non-abrasive. So I'm not taking any metal off. I'm just polishing the surface. You can see that. It's like a mirror. It's great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to do this surface too, because like I said, this surface right here rides up against the frame. Got to do this surface too. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'm going to turn the camera off and I'll be right back with you, man. I know you don't want to sit here and watch me do this whole thing. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so got this all polished up. You can see metal polished it, smoothed this down, and I also took my Dremel tool and polished it up with Froglube twice. It's really, really slick. Feels great. So now all we have to do now is put it back together. Okay, so in this kit from Ghost, you get the connector, you get this spring, and it also comes with 2 firing pin springs. Now, first kit I ever put in, I put the really light 4-pound spring in it. Well, I went to the range, and I will tell you, you will experience more than likely some light strikes with this 4-pound spring. I put the spring in, And I would say about every 8th round, I would get a light strike. Very frustrating. I mean, you know, if you're just at the range shooting, whatever. But I like my guns to function 100%. So I came back home and put this 6-pound spring in it, but we'll get back to that in just a little bit later. So we're going to set the 4-pound to the side, take our 6-pound, put it in our bucket of parts. Now, I've already installed the connector. Okay. Now I did go ahead and metal polish it some more with metal polish and Froglube. I did go ahead and install this spring that comes in the kit. So what we're going to do is, this has to go in here like this, right? So this spring has to hook in here to where this can go back together like this. But before I do, I want to coat this with some more Froglube. Both surfaces. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm going to go ahead. This surface right here, I polished it really, really good. Because when you put this together, you're going to notice, get that down in there like that, that's the surfaces that mate. So you've got this surface, got this surface, and the back side, but you also have this surface right here against that little rail. So that is very, very smooth. Very, very smooth. All right, so I'm going to put it back together. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I'm going to put it back together and we'll be right back. I want to go ahead and do something else that I did. This is a great time to go ahead and polish these guides while you got it apart. Might as well. All right, so we're going to take our Dremel tool. You know, the industry that I work in, you learn really fast that friction, anytime you get friction, is resistance. So if we can cut down on resistance and make everything in this gun function and slide smoother, why would we not? Okay. A little bit there, a little metal polish there. Now we're going to wipe all that out in a minute, but now I know what you're saying. You can't get to the back side of it. I understand that. But we're going to do what we can. I'm going to gently polish these up like this. How shiny that is. You'll be surprised. A little bit of effort, a little bit of time, how smooth these pistols can become. Nice. Easy. All right, I'm going to clean this up. We'll be right back. Okay. So now we're going to drop our trigger in. Take our assembly. I'm going to slide it down in here. Put the trigger in first. That slides right down in there like that. Like I said, I polished this side because this rubs up against the frame. Very smooth. Very smooth. Now I did go ahead and polish my block. Put that down in there like that. Okay. So now we need to grab our pins. Except there's 3 pins. On the Gen 4, one of them is polymer because it comes with back straps, and you also get a longer one if you put on a back strap, but since I don't, that in there like that. Now, slide release. Wipe that off a little bit. All right, so this slide release inside the gun fits in here like this, okay? So you want to just go in here like this. See, it's got a spring on it, so it goes right there, pushes up against the block, okay? Now you might have to wiggle this. This is the larger pin. You got to kind of wiggle that around like that. Looks good, okay? Got our trigger assembly back in. It's all polished up, smoothed down. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the slide back on it. See how she feels. Wow, what a difference. Smooth as butter. These ghost triggers and a little bit of effort, that is such a smooth trigger. Wall, bam, so easy, feels so good. Okay, so we're not done though. We've got to put this in. All right. Or you can leave the factory one in. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. But there's some other things that you can do up in here to make it even more smooth. So let's do that. All right, I'm going to take the slide apart. I'm not going to bore you with that. But what we need to do is we need to remove the back. We need to remove the firing pin so we can get out our plunger. You can see this is brand new. All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to disassemble this. We'll be right back. Okay, so what we have here is we have our slide disassembled. We have our firing pin. We've got the ejector plunger, the firing pin block plunger, and then the spring. Now the Ghost kit comes with this little spring. And we're going to set that aside for right now. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to polish this plunger. Because remember, this surface is what rides over this plunger. This rides up this ramp. Okay, I'm going to make this as smooth as possible. Now this is one of the safeties in the Glocks. This actually keeps, unless it's pushed up, it will not let the firing pin go forward like this. Okay, so it's actually a block. Sits right here and then pushes up, firing pin can go forward. So we're going to polish all these pieces. I'm even going to polish these. I want to take the firing pin apart, take the spring off of it. This is where this other spring goes. So we've got to disassemble this. Now this is a little tricky. You've got to be careful because you will lose pieces. It's very, very easy to lose these pieces. This little spring is captured by these little retainers. All right, so if you're watching this, if you've ever built a head on an automobile and you've ever put valves in, this little retainer is almost made just like that. So what you have to do is you have to hold the firing pin down, hold the spring down, and then you have to remove these little retainers. They're in two pieces. They're just like little keepers in an engine, in a head. And then your firing pin will come apart like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to polish all this up, just like we did these components. Okay. Now this one right here, this is pretty smooth. You can actually buy some aftermarket ones, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to polish this one up. It's pretty smooth. Not a whole lot of problem with it. And I'm going to go ahead and polish these up, and I'm not going to bore you with sitting here watching me do it. But after I get them all polished, I'll bring you back. Okay, so one thing that I want to show you, what I do is the plunger. I chuck it up in a drill after I take the little spring out. It takes some, this is like 150 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to make sure there's no burrs on this. Okay, I don't want to remove any metal. Okay, I just want to lightly take, and I'm going to turn it on and just make sure that there's no metal. Now this is a machine surface, so there really shouldn't be. Yeah, feels great, smooth. All right, so now we're going to polish it with our metal polish. Get rid of the sandpaper. I'll be back with you. Okay, we're back. So I've taken my firing pin apart. I polished the surface that actually mates inside the slide. I polished both ends of the plunger. Okay. Now, I'm going to put it all back together. And like I said, the plunger in the Ghost kit comes with a new little spring. Goes right here in the plunger. All right. So on our slide, I don't do anything to this slide. There's nothing to do. I mean, I guess you could polish this, but this has a coating on it, and I'm not going to mess with this coating. All right, so let's put our firing pin back together. I'll take this and set this over here so we don't knock it off. Okay. All right, so our firing pin is in here like this. All right. Next, we have our spring, and we have to compress this spring down here like this while we put these little retainers in. These are a little monster to get back in there. And if you let go of this spring, you're going to be ordering you some retainers. So now we're all back together. All right. Now, before I put this back together, I do put a coating of Froglube on it. Like I said, Froglube kind of melts and soaks into the metal when it gets heat, gets a little hot. Okay, so we're going to reassemble our slide. So we've got our plunger, our extractor, our firing pin, and plunger. All right, so what I need to do is put extractor back in. Now I put a little bit of Froglube on here just to hold this spring so it won't fall out as I reassemble this. Now you notice the firing pin needs to be in here. And this base plate actually pushes up against that. Okay, now this plunger goes in here like this. All right. Now once that's all together, this won't come back out, and our extractor is pinned in. All right. So as we put this back in, push down on there, start sliding that up. Take a little Glock armor tool, push this down just to catch it over the edge, snap it up in there, and we're all back together. Okay. Got our firing pin. If you ever noticed how a Glock works, let me just show you. So as you pull the trigger and this pushes down, see the firing pin won't go forward until this is pressed. So if we press this, the firing pin will come out and strike the primer. Resets. Firing pin will not hit that unless this plunger is pulled. All right. So we're all back together. We've installed our ghost trigger system. We've done our polish job on our frame. Oh, great, good to go. All right, so let's put our barrel back in. Now I do coat all these with Froglube. You can kind of see that. Put this back together like that. Wow, what a smooth trigger. Well, as you can see, just a little bit of work and some time. It is a messy job, but it is well worth it. After you go through this little process and you go to the range and you become more accurate because your trigger is smoother. Now, I'm not saying this is going to make a marksman out of anybody, but what I have noticed is it has helped me tremendously with my accuracy, because as I pull the trigger, I'm not having to jerk or pull, push, or anything because of the tension on the trigger. But this is so smooth now. Bam. I love it. Thanks for watching. I hope this was just a little information for you. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not trying to tell you to do this to your Glock. This is not instruction. This is what I do to my Glocks. They do work. It does work for me. I will tell you, if you do this, it will void your warranty. Thanks for watching.